You're listening to Big Blend Radio's English Connection Show with Glynn Burrows, owner of Norfolk Tours. Welcome, everybody, to Big Blend Radio. You know, Glynn is here every fourth Saturday talking about England, which is a wonderful place to be, right? And we have some friends who are on their way to England. They were stopping in London, and I told her about Glynn, over at Norfolk Tours. And I said, if you go to London, even if you're swapping planes, because they were on their way to France, and I said, you must have a Mr. Whippy. So
You
I
have
had to
to.
explain about the 99-cent Mr. Whippy. It's not 99 pennies anymore, is it?
No,
The 99?
not for a long while.
When I was a kid, you could get a chocolate flake in there for 99 cents. Not anymore.
99 pence. Pence.
Pence, that's right.
We
Pence,
don't have
pennies.
some.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, they will be doing that. So
Good for them.
I said I want a photo. You
I
cannot
was going to say we need a photographic
evidence
evidence.
of ice cream. So, today we're talking about Castle Acre, not Mr. Whippy ice cream, but I don't know. We always talk about food on the show with Glynn.
We have
But
to.
Glynn is taking us to Castle Acre, which is like a medieval village. I mean, look at the ruins, this is amazing to me. Just the building itself, I think that is one of the beauties of England is the old architecture. I mean, and what went into it. When stonemasons back in those days, when we had people doing stone masonry with amazing design. Look at those designs. I can't stop looking at that. It's amazing.
Just
Look
look
at
at
it
that.
all, everybody. If
Look
you're
at that.
if you're listening to this, I'm sorry, go look and click on the link to Glynn's article about Castle Acre, and it has photos there so you can see what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
the detail, the intricate detail back in those days without like machines like what we have now. So when we
No.
say medieval, we're talking like 10,000
Well,
AD.
anything between the time the Romans left and about 1450. So that's about 1,000 years between 400 and 1400-ish, you know. So
Mm,
any time around then. But what I'm really talking about is the Normans up until about 1400. And the fact that most of the churches in England,
mhm.
or not all, a lot of the churches were built between 1066, when the Normans came, and about 1450. So the country must have been an absolute hive of activity because all of this building was going on all over the country. It's
Mm,
just unbelievable. And the scale of the build, I mean, you can see the scale of the building behind me is massive. I mean,
mm.
the little, if you can see, where am I? I've got to try, this is backwards here. So that little doorway there
Okay.
is just about 6 foot high.
Wow.
You can see how big the building is. And that is all faced with Norman stone.
Okay.
The core of it, so the main body of all of the buildings are flint, like you can see behind you, is all flint.
Yeah, I got more flint.
Yeah, you have. And the buildings, the ruins behind the facade, all of them are flint, but
Okay.
they would have been cased in stone. So it's a bit like a veneer. So
Okay.
if you took all that lovely white stone off the front of that building, it would be flint behind it. So the core of it is all flint and is faced with stone from Normandy. It's
Wow. So
just
that makes it
amazing.
unpenetrable, really, when you think about wars, right? It's kind of like, well, unless you have a big cannon go off, right? But then,
Well, no. I mean, this was a priory. The one behind me is just a priory, a big church.
mm,
So it weren't built for protection. It was built for to make it look impressive,
mm,
and it definitely succeeds in that.
mm.
I mean, the castle is another story. I mean, the castle itself, the walls are about 12 foot thick. You
Wow.
know, yeah.
Yeah, you're
So
not getting out of that.
you're not getting out of that. And again, that is all hard bashed flint faced with stone.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So
I,
if you were locked up in there, because
weren't getting out.
you're not getting out of the jail cell. You can't
No,
dig your way out.
you
That's
can't dig your way out. No,
wow.
and
Wow.
you're not
And
going to
so
get out.
so that was really more protection too, for if somebody came to attack. But then you had like
Well,
moats and things too, didn't you?
yeah, it was protection, but it was more to do with the fact that the Normans arrived and they then took over the country from the Saxons. What they did then is they got the Saxons to work with them, as you do when
Mhm.
you've been taken over, you do as you're told. And the Saxons actually did all the hard work, no doubt, for the Normans. And the Normans then built these amazing earthworks, which are absolutely massive. So you've got
Wow.
these great big mounds of earth, and on the top of them, you've got a big castle. But actually, what it was a statement to say that I'm here. So don't even bother trying to attack me because I'm a lot bigger than you are. And the
Wow.
castles were put in such a place that they could be seen from miles and miles away. So if you can imagine on a landscape, you've got this massive hill, which is a
Hmm.
man-made mound, and on top of that, you've got a massive castle, which is faced with white stone, like the Priory behind me,
Hmm.
just shone in in the landscape. And it was
Wow.
it was so big and protected by earthworks and stone walls and everything else that you can imagine, you didn't even think about attacking it because it was just too much.
To
It
you
was a
couldn't it's
statement. It was a statement.
wow. So it is showing off
Yeah.
opulence too, right? And that's
Oh,
also
yeah.
opulence. That's such a thing back then too. Just even here in the States, like you go to like that one Watson Curtsey Mansion. It's in Erie, Pennsylvania, their history center. The guy who invented asbestos had a mansion there as part of the history center. And you go in there and he copied what the Romans did with in the Italians, all this fancy woodwork done, and he didn't even care about any of that. All he did was to show off, I'm
Yeah,
rich. That's
exactly.
what it was about,
And
you know.
that's what a lot of this is about,
Mm,
is to say we're in charge. And also the churches, it was basically the more money you had, the bigger church you built, so you
mm.
had a free way up to heaven. Because if you built a really big church and you had loads of people saying prayers for you, then you were going to go to heaven. And that was basically what it was all about. It was all
But
about,
what about greed being in there?
well, yeah,
You
but
know,
that didn't matter because you had lots of people praying for you. So they were praying that you're going to go to heaven, so therefore you would go to heaven. No matter how nasty you were, how many people you killed, or how much money you stole, it didn't matter because you had people praying for you. Well, that was the idea anyway. So
wow.
the it was basically the big priories, the big churches were built in the for the glory of
Hmm.
God. In other
Okay.
words, to impress God. And if
Hmm.
you could impress God, you're going to go to heaven. Well, that was the
So
medieval idea, you see.
now, did they have in the churches? Because I know some, I don't, I know we've been to some in South Africa that had this where if you were rich, you got buried in the church, like
Yes,
there were sections like under the
yes,
church. So you were going to be closer to God
yep. If
because,
you go into any church in England, you will see that the most important people are buried right up near the altar, right up the east end of a church. And
okay,
that
so
that
that's,
is the most important part of the church because that's where the altar is. The East End is always where the altar is, and that is where the most well-off people, the biggest people in the area, ended up getting buried. Or they had a crypt, and 9 times out of 10, the crypt is underneath the chancel, which is at the east end of the church. So
wow.
if you were really important, you got buried more or less under the altar. So you were trying your hardest to get as close to God as you possibly could, because the East End is the end where you needed to be. So it was all about money, property, prestige,
Wow.
greed.
Well, when you think about this, like, the more money you make, the closer you're going to get to God. Isn't that kind of wild? Like, if you think
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, totally. But actually, the one of the best memorials I've ever seen is to a bishop. I can't remember which one it was now. He's in a cathedral. There is a stone memorial to him, but all he's got on him is a loincloth. Mostly, all of the bishops that you normally see in these great big tombs are buried with all their bishops' regalia, the bishop's mitre, the cloaks, the staff, and, everything. This one has just got a loincloth. Now, I like that because he was being more pious. He was
Yeah,
he was
a
the true,
servant of God.
yeah, he had the true meaning of good.
Service.
Yeah,
Yeah,
service.
of
So
service.
he weren't showing how rich he was. He just had a loincloth on. And I think that was the thing that really sort of brought it home to me. Whereas normally the bishops, the knights, all of the knights are in their full armor, these
Hmm.
fantastic tombs that you can see in places. They've got their full armor on, they've got everything.
But how did you see like his loincloth? Like, you didn't peek in there, did you?
No,
Like, he's
no, it's
not
a
a mummy.
stone.
It's in the stone. The
It's a
stone
stone
yeah.
effigy of him.
Oh, okay.
He's
Okay.
laying, he's laying on top of his tomb,
Yeah. Well,
but all he's got on is just a loincloth. And
have
I
you
think
ever seen a mummy? Have you
uh,
seen a mummy?
yeah, yeah, yeah. We've got some in Cambridge and Norwich Museum and that we've
I
stolen
I
from Egypt.
I love mummies.
Oh dear.
Yeah, no, I saw a toe. Like, when we were in Pretoria, South Africa, in a museum, there was a
Right.
mummy in this glass case, and that, I was a kid. Like, that's like, wow, dude, there's a mummy. And there was a toe sticking out of his bandages. And
Yeah.
I've just been fascinated ever since.
Mm.
So anyway, I had to ask if you had mummies. I mean, if they
Yeah, I
mummied
mean
people there,
we've got the Egyptian ones. We didn't mummify people in England.
and no cannibalism now. So we might as well
Um,
just go
not
there.
now, not at the moment, as far as I'm aware. No.
Are we going to talk politics soon? No, just
Um,
kidding. No,
Probably not.
no, let's not do that. Well, but this is, it just is fascinating to me about going closer to God, but then bringing the money side and the opulence, right? So, but in some ways, isn't it also about being, I'm working hard to get the money? So like it's the opulence, and maybe was not to be like, you're being a show off,
Yes.
but deep down, isn't it to show off like, I worked really hard to get this, so I
Yeah, but most of the people. Now I am going to be political here now, probably.
oh,
But
yay.
but a lot, and I would say most of the people who had a lot of money actually didn't work necessarily for it. They were given it. For instance, the man who built Castle Acre Castle and ultimately the Priory was given that land by William the Conqueror because he came over with William the Conqueror at the Battle of Hastings. And when William the Conqueror came over and conquered England in 1066, all of the knights who came over with him were given pieces of land. And this particular man, who was called William de Warenne, was given Castle Acre and loads of other bits of land. And he chose Castle Acre as where he wanted to have his main residence. So he built this massive castle in Castle Acre. On one of his trips to France, to Cluny, he went to a monastery in Cluny, and he then decided that he would found a monastery or priory in Castleacre for the Cluniacs. So he built this massive priory in Castleacre. So to say that he worked hard for what he got is up to debate, but
Mm.
he came along and he did all what he did, you know.
Mm. So
And
he's the one who started all of this. Here's this
William de
is.
Warren is the one who
Mhm.
built Castle Acre Priory and Castle Acre Castle. Well, him and his son and his grandson,
Oh,
because
but
obviously,
they didn't physically do it themselves. They had.
can you imagine him with a wheelbarrow? I don't think so.
No, no, but so were the people that built these, the stonemasons and people like that, right? Are they being paid, or are they kind of slaves at that time?
At that time, a lot of the people would have been next to slaves because a lot of them would have been the Saxons, so the people who the Normans came over and beat. So the Saxons would have worked for next to nothing.
Mm.
The experts obviously would have been paid. So the stonemasons who made this fantastic frontage behind me, they would have been paid because they were craftsmen. And the architects and the main builders, they would have been paid. But your normal men and women and children who were collecting all the stones, don't forget this is made up of millions of tons of flint that
Mm.
was collected off the land because flint is just in the fields in Norfolk. This would have all been collected by men, women, and children, and
Oh, wow.
probably didn't get very much for it.
Wow. And so they have to cart that in. And I'm
Yep.
thinking animals, horse, donkey kind of thing, and then humans.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been hard work.
Yeah, really hard work. I'm glad we're talking about this because I think we never go into that, personal side at times when we see things like this. It's like, wow, this is incredible. We
Yeah.
get, sparkly eyed over the opulence, but forget who built it and got their hands dirty and bloody. And
Exactly.
it's like when you think about our White House here in this country was built by slaves,
Yeah.
and it's so. I mean, why are they even calling it the White House? All right, let me not get into any of that. But honestly, but it's about the buildings, it's like in Arizona, Ted DeGrazia, the artist, and I think you maybe been on shows with Lance before. I'm not sure, the executive director there. It's all Adobe, so it's like the mud earthworks kind of thing, like what you're talking about,
Yeah. Yeah.
all
Yeah.
Adobe, and he did it. And he had to put because when you had land and you did anything like you built at that time, because he was very close to Mexican people, the Yaqui Indians, and the Tohono O'odham Nation over there, or the Native American people, the indigenous people. He was friends with them. He did artwork on them. And so when he built this massive gallery and then his house, he put a mission on there. So it's a little church. And
Yeah.
so he had a nun's quarters and the nuns would come. In fact, we've done radio shows from the nuns quarters, but things always went wonky. Whenever we did a live podcast over there, I swear his ghost was there. I swear he was like, he'd mess with it. And if I said something, I'd go, he's going to take off the internet. He did. No, he did. But when you go there, it's like this was all done by hand with his friends in this. They wanted to be part of it. It was if you were doing someone's house, you're going to go help them. Even when we lived in Mexico, it was that way. People, you would
Yes.
see half-built houses because they'll build what they can afford at the time. And then, if they get a few more bucks, then their friends come in and they build a little bit more and they build according to their budget at the time. So it's like it could take 10 years for a house to be built. It just gets
Isn't
slowly
that
built.
isn't that more or less what they do with the Amish? They do barn raisings, don't they? They
Oh
all
yeah,
come
yeah.
together and build a barn.
Farmers do it. They help each other all the time
Yeah.
with that. And that's like community gets together to build something that's needed. So if a farmer needs help with their barn, somebody's going to come and help and they'll go
Yep.
help them,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
that's a cool way.
that happens even today. I mean,
Hmm.
my son-in-law, he's a farmer, and if one of his mates gives him a call because his combine is broken down, then Bob will go and take his combine and help him out because
Yeah.
that's what you do, isn't it?
Isn't that
I mean,
nice? That's
that's
the
what you
nice
do.
part about
Exactly.
humanity.
Just
It's
yeah,
really cool. I mean, you're looking at what's going on in the country here. with the recovery from the, hurricanes, of people just going in and help clearing a roadway.
Yeah.
You're just seeing people take their own mules, own helicopters. I mean, there's a lot going on, and it's devastating. And then you see these beautiful acts of community and humanity doing what humanity's supposed to do. And you get teary-eyed more on that than you do the devastation, because it's like, wow, it does exist. And we need to
But,
remember that.
but why does it always take a disaster before? I
It's
mean, when COVID hit, everybody was helping everybody. If ever we get a massive snowstorm, that everybody helps everybody. But normally people are throwing knives at each other. Not literally, but
as
you know
soon
what I
as
mean.
as soon as it's over, it's over. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very interesting. So going back to Castle Acre, he's sitting there, rich man, Mr.
yeah,
Opulence,
yeah,
and getting people like next to nothing to do
yeah,
all this work for him,
yep.
right? So then, did they have to build their own houses, or did they have their own village area, or were their homes there in this in Castle Acre itself?
Well, if you know anything about castles, which you may not do, but a
You're
castle
talking to Lisa. I don't know anything.
like a castle in Castle Acre is called a Motte and Bailey Castle.
Oh,
So the
okay.
motte, I'm using my hands to show you. The motte is the big bump where the castle stands on top. The bailey is the open area in front of the castle, which is normally protected by a wall and earthworks. So you've got the big bump with the castle on top. You've normally got a big moat that surrounds the motte. Then outside that, over the drawbridge, is the inner bailey, which is also protected by a big earthworks and probably gates and things like that to stop people getting in. Inside that inner bailey, there is normally the main hall, the great big hall building. There are normally like blacksmiths, wheelwrights, carpenters, the kitchens, places like that in the inner bailey. Then on the outer bailey, which is another area outside that,
Wow.
is another protected area with a big bank around that where your labourers, your not necessarily the labourers, but the middle workers would have been. So you had the Lord in the castle on top of the hill, in his inner bailey,
Looking down on everybody else.
yeah. Then in the inner bailey you had the tradesmen. Then
Okay.
in the outer bailey you had the sort of middle tradesmen, so like the carpenters,
Mm.
labourers, or the people who worked in the kitchens, or
Hmm.
the blacksmiths helpers. And then outside all of that, in the village itself, which was unprotected, then you had the riffraff. You had people like me. My ancestors would have lived outside all of that. They would have been in little mud huts. And in fact, most of the people, even in the outer bailey, would have been living in little, probably 1 or 2 room wooden huts with a thatched roof. So they
Oh,
wouldn't they wouldn't have been proper houses. They would have
mm,
just been a timber with a thatch roof. So,
wow.
there was a real class system. So you had the Lord and his really, really top people. Then you had the middle laboring
Hmm.
people in the other bit and the tradesmen. And then you had the smelly peasants who were living out in the village.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy.
It
That's
is.
crazy when you think
A bit
about.
like
So he
that now,
really,
though, isn't it?
yeah, here's the big house looking down on the little people.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing changes.
Man, it's the Lord of the Flies, isn't it?
Well, it
It
is.
is. It
Nothing
is.
changes.
But going to these grounds, so I want to talk about how it become a ruin, because you can go to castles that are preserved over years, right?
Yes,
And some
you
people
can.
still have castles in their family, that is,
Oh, yes. Yeah, there
and
are.
they rent them out because they need to somehow pay for all that, and try to take care of a castle is not cheap. That
No.
is no. And some people live, like, don't they rent out like parts of it,
Oh,
like
yeah. I
Like
mean,
Hyacinth Bouquet wanted to go stay in one, keeping
you
up
can,
appearances.
you can stay in a castle if you want to. You know,
Wow.
that is a
Do you ever
possibility.
do that on the tours? Do you, any of your guests?
I haven't actually stayed in a castle yet, but I've stayed in some really, really big houses. Um,
Really?
yeah, really, really lovely big houses, but not a castle as yet. I mean,
As yet?
Catherine, who has been on
Yeah,
with
the
me,
yeah,
she's got a house that dates back to 1349. It's not a
that's
castle,
insane.
but it's a really lovely
It's an
medieval.
estate.
No, it's just a big house.
Well, yeah, that's, but 1300s, like when you hear that from our side, there wasn't any,
No, no.
I mean, there were teepees for the indigenous people of the
Yeah, of course.
country, but we
Yeah,
didn't have any of that. So I think the oldest building I've seen in this country is the 1700s, which
yeah,
makes sense,
yeah,
and stayed in one that was 1700s, and you're just like, wow, it's amazing. And the way they built them were really strong back then.
yeah,
Now our houses are a little bit different. You know, I just think they built them really strongly. But I mean, there's castles you can experience that are like Edinburgh Castle, right? Oh, I
yeah,
love Edinburgh Castle. But then there's what Castle Acres, it became a ruin. So
yes.
how did it become like, didn't you have somebody just tear it up? Like, and you're not supposed to tear them up? Like, what
No,
happened?
what happened? Well, with the Priory, the one behind me and the one
Hmm.
behind you, that is thanks to Henry VIII, because we all know about Henry VIII. He was he wanted to get a divorce. The Pope said no. He said, "Okay, I'm going to leave the Catholic Church and invent my own church, and then I'm going to let myself get a divorce." So that's basically what he did.
I'm
But
Henry VIII, I am.
yeah, as you're reading my article, actually, there was a lot more to that. But with places like Castle Acre Castle, if you look at a castle, I mean, Norwich Castle is a really good example. It's roughly the same age as Castle Acre Castle, but it's still there. Or some of it is anyway. So you can see how difficult it is to live in a castle comfortably, because it's
Mm.
not made to live in comfortably. It's it's not a lovely, comfy place to live in.
It's like
So,
a fort, more of a
well,
fort than it
exactly,
is.
it's not somewhere to live. So a lot of them were, especially by the 1400s and the 1500s, people who had enough money to live in a castle actually decided it would be nicer if they built themselves a really lovely big house somewhere. And so they started to build really lovely big houses. So they were more comfortable. They had more fireplaces. They had windows. They had much more comfort. So at that point, the castle then became obsolete because it was just a castle that really nobody needed. So what then happened was, if you've got this massive stone building on your doorstep and you wanted to build a house, in the middle of the night, you would go round with your wheelbarrow and you would steal what stone you could to build your house. So over the years, places like Castle Acre Castle got robbed of the stone.
Oh,
Or if the landowner who actually owned the castle was going to build some roads, he would go to the castle and take a few cartloads of stone for his roads. Or if he wanted to build a barn, he would go to the castle and get some stone. So over the years, the castle, which stood that high, slowly goes down and down and
oh, that's
down.
sad.
Well, it is. But that's what happens because you've got this massive heap of stone and
Hmm.
it's not doing anything. So people go on, take it.
Well, speaking too, I mean, did they have because the Priory, we talked about people being buried in the churches, right? But what about like, are there graveyards there?
In the Priory, um, there have been some excavations at Castle Acre, and there are some graves. There are no stones or
Okay.
slabs even, but there will be if they excavated the castle again. The Priory again, they would find graves because there would be a burial area. Castle Acre has actually got a medieval church as well, just across the road, just in case you want another medieval building to look at. So there is a medieval building there, but that didn't come along until probably 300 years after the Priory. So
Wow.
you know, there were burials in the Priory grounds.
Hmm. Wow. So much to put to like to go. Like, how long would you spend if you when you take people there? I mean, I'm one of those people who could spend a day in something like that, just,
Yeah,
because I'm
I
like
mean,
that.
it
But
it depends. It depends how interested you are, obviously. But you can easily spend a couple of hours at Castle Acre Castle and 2 or 3 hours at the Priory. So,
mm,
that is the best part of a day. And also, if you go into the village, which you've really got to go in because there is still a medieval gate in the village as well. And there's a very nice little tea shop
oh, I
uh,
know where we're going.
that serves some lovely cheese scones.
I knew we were going to have to
You
bring the
knew
cheese
it.
scones
There's also
into
a
it.
pub in the village if you want a pint
Okay.
of beer. So,
Okay. So, and a Mr. Whippy shop?
um, there is a grocer's shop, but they don't sell Mr. Whippy ice cream, I'm afraid.
Well, Glenn, you need to go sort it out. Well,
So,
but it's a little village. So do people live at Castle Acre, like
oh
as a
yeah,
village?
it's
Okay.
quite a big village. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. So like, shops and things like that. So people want
Well,
to,
no, there's the village shop, one pub. There's a second-hand bookshop. There's an
oh,
antique
nice.
shop, and then there's the tea shop. That's about
Well,
it.
the tea shop's important.
For me, it is. Yeah,
Yeah, cheese scones.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, we want that. I would like this. You know what? I'm gonna make some. I've got Diane's recipe. I'm gonna make it.
You got the recipe. Go for it.
Yeah, yeah, I'll let you know. Like, we won't burn down the house or anything, but
Well,
maybe when we get to Tucson, we'll do it. Yeah, when we get,
photographic evidence of your cheese scones, please.
I think it'll be very good with, yeah, and then melted butter, real butter, or do you
Oh
want margarine? Must be real butter.
no! Oh
What? No butter?
no, no margarine. Yeah,
I did do that to you. I always have to find something you don't like just to get you to do the no. No
do
margarine.
not add
No
margarine on a cheese scone.
margarine. How it's like sausages, like it fake sausages.
Oh, you can't have cardboard sausages. Come on.
Cardboard sausages and margarine are no-nos.
No.
So you don't
Well,
eat margarine.
someone told me once, whether it's right or not, I don't know. There's one molecule difference between margarine and plastic. I
Yep,
don't know whether
it's
that's
absolutely
true.
true. No, it is true. It's because of
Oh,
how
okay.
they do the it's how they heat the oil process, right? And so it's not a good thing.
And
It's not healthy.
also, I've also been told, whether this is right or not, I don't know. But I've also been told if you put margarine outside, nothing will touch it. Rats won't eat margarine, cats don't eat margarine, and it won't go moldy. So
Well,
that,
okay. See, okay. So let me tell you, that I do experiments, right?
yeah.
I had a McDonald's French fry in the car for 3 years and nothing happened to it. It stayed
No, really.
exactly. It did not change
Yeah.
for 3 years. I've seen people with ice creams now. Obviously, this is not a Mr. Whippy, that doesn't melt. A soft serve ice cream that doesn't melt.
Oh dear.
Mm. So you got
That
to
is,
watch what's
of
in our food. See, so that's why everyone, we have to talk about something different, other than our main topic as always on
course
this
we do.
show.
Of
But you
course we
know,
do.
but that's the thing about, like, when you go to England, I want English food. I want the sausage that comes from the farmer. I want the Mr. Whippy. I
Me
want the
too.
yeah. I want that real. I want butter on the cheese scone with
Me
cheese,
too.
real cheese,
Of
right?
course.
Real cheese. We
Not
want
this
that.
horrible plastic stuff.
Yeah, the plastic cheese is weird, isn't it?
Ugh.
Yeah, we have a lot of it here. Do you guys have that too? The plastic cheese? I
I'm
don't remember
afraid
that.
that you can buy plastic cheese to put on your beef burger, but not in this house.
You know what Nancy and I had for breakfast the other day that you're gonna
You didn't.
get the
You
giggles
did
at?
not have bacon and marmalade or whatever it is, do you?
Marmite, my Marmite. Mm. You know what? England has some of the best marmalade, though. I am a
Oh yeah.
sucker for good
My
marmalade.
wife
Oh,
Diane loves marmalade, especially the
oh,
one with the bits in.
yeah, me too. I want the bitsies, and I don't want it overly sweet. I want the tart marmalade. There's a certain, I mean, I'll have grapefruit marmalade, lemon, orange, all of it. I'm yes, on a good scone, but I wouldn't put it on a cheese scone.
No,
Okay. Oh, we agree on something on this
please
now.
don't put marmalade on a cheese scone. Just
No,
butter.
no, or cheese. I'd add cheese to the cheese scone because I'm like that.
That's just greed.
I know, but we're talking opulence and castles,
Yeah, you are.
Get
Yeah.
to, but I was gonna say now it totally went out of
I think it did.
oh, what we had for breakfast. We had baked beans on toast.
Ugh,
Oh, come on, Glynn, that's a classic British meal.
no, I don't eat
No.
baked beans.
Well, they were
Too,
chili beans. I will tell you they were chili beans.
too
They weren't
sweet.
baked, but
Too much
yeah, they are
sugar
a little
in
sweet.
baked beans.
Well, chili beans. That's
Okay.
so that's our version. Baked beans are too sweet. All right. So now everybody, we've had the food report. Okay.
Yep.
And we know that there's tea and scones. That's important when you go out, go
Yep.
walking. And it seems like something I would want to do in spring, like a nice spring walkabout.
Well, funnily enough, you say that. Also, running through Castle Acre is a Roman road. So you can walk on a Roman road as well as visiting all its medieval ruins. And you can walk
Hmm.
by a river. The river at Castle Acre is to die for. It's one of those fast flowing, bubbling little rivers that run through the village, and it sounds absolutely amazing. Just the water bubbling through the
I
stuff.
love that.
Yeah, I
It's
just
calming.
love it. I love it.
Ooh, spring. And all the little buttercups come out, the little flowers.
Oh, the
That's what I
primrose,
remember in England.
daffodils.
Primroses.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man. Can we
What
skip
are you waiting
winter?
for?
We want to skip winter and go right to spring.
Well, that'd be
We'll,
good.
we'll
Yeah,
we'll come see you. We'll come see you.
waiting for it.
I think a lot of people are coming to England real soon. Why not? It's, I think go have a white Christmas in England. That's magical. So everyone stay tuned on that. I know we'll be talking with Glynn a bit about that. It's coming soon too. But everyone go to norfolk-tours.co.uk and keep up with Glynn there and call him if you're going to England. Get in
Do
touch
that.
with him, especially if you are researching your family history. You do a lot of tours with that. So
I
very
do.
cool. And he'll take you to Castle Acre. And if you see Glynn, you know you're going to have a cheese scone in your future.
Definitely. Do you know, I'll just tell you this. Last week I had a repeat pair of customers from Australia.
Oh,
They
yeah.
came, they came over in 2017 and they got back to me and said, we want to go to another part of England. So I went
Mm-hmm.
across to um, Glastonbury and
Oh, nice.
Huntingdon. And anyway, one of the first things she said to me when we went in and had lunch one day, I know what you're going to have, a cheese scone. So she remembered from 2017 that all I eat is cheese scones.
That's it. See, so what, and your time of crossing, we know what you want to be buried with. Cheese
Oh,
scone.
yeah.
It's going to be on,
Oh,
you're going to have a stone scone.
yeah.
Try and say that.
Cheese scone. That'd be
I
good.
love I love it. Hey, but you know what? A good scone is a good scone, and yeah. Well, thank you for making me hungry, Glenn. I wish we had some of those right now. Are you going to go have a scone now? I know you are.
No, I haven't got any at the minute.
Oh, Diane.
I know.
Ooh. Oh,
No good.
oh dear. Oh dear. Do not put her in the moat. Okay. Thanks so much, Glenn.
See you later.
Thank you for joining us for Big Blend Radio's English Connection show with Glynn Burrows, owner of Norfolk Tours. If you're planning a vacation to England or looking up your family history in England, visit norfolk-tours.co.uk to connect with Glynn. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.